I met Willow in the most unexpected way, and at the time I thought fate was finally being kind to me. I was scraping by, working double shifts as a mechanic and tutoring kids in math on the side, just to keep the lights on in my cramped apartment. She showed up one day with a flat tire and a gentle smile that didn't match the faded hoodie and worn out sneakers she wore. There was something strange about her, something magnetic. She laughed at my dumb jokes, asked about my life, and listened like it mattered. That night, she came back with coffee, saying she owed me for helping her so fast. That became a ritual. Every few days, Willow would stop by, and soon it felt like I was living for those moments, when the world slowed down and it was just us. I didn't know she was rich. In fact, I didn't even know she came from the kind of wealth that owned multiple estates and had drivers waiting outside. She never showed it, never slipped. For months, she played the role of a humble girl with simple dreams. She'd sit with me on the floor of my studio, eating ramen noodles, claiming they were her favorite. I thought I'd found the one person who didn't care about status, money, or image. I was falling, deep. She encouraged me to stay where I was, said the struggle made me real and grounded, and that I shouldn't chase big dreams because we were enough. At first, at first, I believed her. I even gave up and offered a partner in a small startup with an old college friend. "It'll take all your time," she whispered. "You'll be stressed, tired, and I'll miss you." I smiled, kissed her forehead, and turned down the opportunity. Over time, she became more involved, subtly controlling. She'd cook for me every night, clean my place, even manage my calendar like a secretary. It looked like love, felt like care, but I didn't realize how much of myself I was losing. Every time I talked about ambition, she'd pout or cry, accusing me of wanting to leave her behind. "Why can't we just be happy like this?" she'd say, tears brimming in her eyes. I didn't want to hurt her. I thought she was fragile. I thought she was scared of losing me. I didn't see the manipulation. It took a full year before the cracks started to show. One day, she forgot her phone at my place. I wasn't snooping, honestly. A message popped up from someone named Clara, estate manager. The preview alone made my heart stop. "The Paris house has been remodeled, Miss Thornbridge. Shall I send you photos?" Thornbridge. I'd heard that name before, from the news, from business headlines. I opened the phone, and everything unraveled at once. Emails, messages, bank notifications. She was a billionaire heiress, a ghost princess playing poor. She had been pretending the entire time. All the while I'd been treating ramen nights like love and sacrifice. She was returning to marble bathrooms and silk sheets after leaving my place. When she came back that evening, smiling with bags of groceries, I confronted her. She didn't deny it. She dropped the bags and stared at me with cold, emotionless eyes. "So you found out," she said quietly. "I wanted to know if you'd love me without the money, if you were like the others." I was speechless. My world cracked. I asked her why she stopped me from building something of my own, why she discouraged every opportunity I had. Her voice dropped to a whisper, so calm, so calculated. "Because if you became something, you might outgrow me, and I'd lose control." That's when it hit me. Her love was never about partnership, it was about possession. I was a project, a plaything she wanted to keep trapped in a glass box. Her love was my cage. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't scream. I just stood there, broken. That night, while she slept on my couch like nothing had happened, I packed my bag. I left my own apartment behind and went to crash on a friend's floor, away from her touch, her tears, her control. She begged the next day, called nonstop, sent gifts, offered to pay off all my debts. But I was done. I needed to breathe. I needed to live. For the first time in years, I wasn't scared of being alone. I was scared of being hers again. The first week away from Willow felt like detox, like my body and soul were withdrawing from a drug I hadn't realized I was addicted to. At first, I kept expecting her to show up, to bang on the door of the rundown guest room I was renting from my old high school friend Darren, who looked at me like I'd lost my mind when I told him the whole story. "You walked away from a billionaire?" he said, eyebrows raised. "Bro, are you insane?" But I wasn't insane. I was free. I was finally breathing. The silence in that little room was heavy, but it was mine. I didn't have someone checking my calendar, cooking for me so I'd feel guilty leaving, or touching my face with soft hands while whispering sweet nothings meant to bind me to stillness. It hurt. God, it hurt, but it was clean, real pain. The kind you feel when your wounds are healing, not when they're being disguised by kisses. Willow kept trying. Every day there was a call, a message, a voicemail. One day I walked out and found a brand new car parked outside with a bow on it and a note taped to the windshield. You deserve more than rust and oil. Come home to me. I didn't touch it. I called a tow truck and had it taken away. Darren shook his head in disbelief. Man, she's still trying. She must actually love you. And maybe she did, in her own way. But love isn't love if it's a leash. A few weeks later, I went back to the startup guy I'd rejected months ago, Khalid, a former dorm mate who'd moved on to tech consulting and wanted to open a local branch. To my surprise, he hadn't filled the spot. I told him everything, minus the heiress part, and he laughed, patted my back, and said, "Well, it's about time you woke up." I dove in headfirst. The work was tough, the hours long, but I felt alive. Every day I was building something. Every day I was reclaiming the pieces of me I didn't know I'd handed over. I started hitting the gym again, eating better, reading, meeting new people. And that's when I met Sophia. She wasn't flashy, didn't pretend to be anyone she wasn't. She was an accountant working part-time at a cafe on weekends, saving up to open her own little business, some dream about a bookshop with coffee and local poetry readings. We met because she spilled an iced latte all over my files when someone bumped into her. I was furious for about 30 seconds. Then she apologized with so much sincerity and panic in her eyes that I laughed. We started talking. She was sharp, quick-witted, grounded in reality in a way that reminded me of the person I used to be. No games, no pretense, just honesty. Over the next few weeks, she'd drop by the office with coffee or food, always joking that she owed me for ruining my documents. And I loved that. There was no manipulation in her kindness, debt I was expected to pay with loyalty or submission. She wanted me to win. That's what hit me hardest. One evening I mentioned an investor pitch I was nervous about, and she said, "You've got this. If they don't see your worth, they're blind." No tears, no fear, no guilt trip, just belief. Willow had told me to stay where I was so I wouldn't leave her behind. Sophia wanted me to run so she could cheer from the sidelines. I wasn't ready for a relationship, but somehow we kept orbiting each other like planets pulled by gravity neither of us understood. Meanwhile, Willow's silence was the loudest thing in the room. The calls stopped. The texts faded. But one night, around 2 a.m., I got a message. Just one line. "You really replaced me with a waitress?" My heart twisted. She was watching me. I didn't respond. I couldn't. This wasn't about revenge or making her jealous. I didn't want war. I just wanted peace. But Willow had never been the type to accept being left behind. A few days later, Sophia's car was mysteriously towed, illegally, from a public parking spot. Then her cafe job was threatened because someone filed a false complaint about health code violations. She laughed it off, saying it was probably a coincidence, but I knew better. Willow's silence had teeth. She was punishing me in ways that didn't look like violence, but they hurt. I confronted her finally on a gray afternoon in the park where she sat feeding birds like nothing had changed. She looked older, tired, her eyes rimmed with smudged makeup. "You're different," she said softly as I approached. "You glow now. I hate that it's not because of me." I told her to leave Sophia alone. I told her I was done, and for once, she didn't argue. She just nodded and whispered, "I was never enough, was I?" But she was wrong. She was more than enough. She just didn't want me to be. And now, I had someone who did. The weeks that followed were like waking up from a coma and realizing the world never stopped turning. It just stopped turning with me. Every day with Sophia felt like breathing fresh air after years underground, and I found myself doing things I'd never dared to do when I was with Willow. Speaking up in meetings, leading projects, chasing investors without fear, and smiling without permission. Sophia never tried to manage me. She inspired me. She challenged my ideas, but never dismissed them, and when I failed, she never made me feel smaller. Instead, she helped me find the lesson buried in the fall. Our bond wasn't rushed, but it was deep. Two people with scars choosing to hold hands without squeezing the life out of each other. I still had shadows in my mind. Willow's presence lingered like perfume on a coat you don't wear anymore but haven't thrown out yet. But I didn't look back. I kept moving forward. With Sophia by my side, I pitched the biggest proposal of my life, a data infrastructure solution for a mid-tier tech firm that was looking to expand. When the deal closed and the wire hit our account, Khalid hugged me so hard I couldn't breathe, and Sophia showed up with a chocolate cake that had "Told You So" written in bright blue icing. That night, as we sat on the floor of my new apartment, one I could finally afford, I looked at her and realized I was in love. Not addicted, not infatuated, just quietly, completely in love. I didn't tell her. Not yet. I wanted to build something steady before I laid my heart down again. But Willow wasn't done with me. One morning, I arrived at the office to find a sleek black car parked out front, and there she was, Willow, wearing a blood-red dress like she'd just stepped out of a movie. Everyone turned to stare. She walked in like she owned the place because, as it turns out, she did. Through a complicated web of investment branches, Willow's father had silently acquired a minority share in Khalid's company, and Willow now had advisory rights. The woman who once told me ambition would ruin us now sat in our boardroom, sipping espresso and offering strategic suggestions about operations. I couldn't breathe. I didn't say a word during that first meeting, but afterward I confronted her. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You wanted space, so I gave you space, but I never promised to stay out of your life." I told her this wasn't love, it was obsession. She smiled, that sick, twisted smile, and whispered, "Maybe, but I made you, George. Don't forget that." That night, I broke down in front of Sophia for the first time. I told her everything, every lie, every manipulation, every moment I'd been too ashamed to speak of. She didn't flinch. She didn't pity me. She kissed me, slow and steady, and said, "You didn't need her to become this man. She just delayed it. Now keep going." The next day, I sat down with Khalid and laid out the truth. He was furious. Not at me, but at the fact that we'd been infiltrated by someone trying to twist us from the inside. With legal help, we drafted a plan to buy back shares and cut off Willow's influence. It wouldn't be easy, but it was possible. Meanwhile, Sophia faced her own test. Someone leaked false stories about her online, whispers of a gold digger targeting me for my rising success. The articles used old, distorted photos and fake interviews. It was classic smear campaign tactics. Willow's fingerprints were all over it. I offered to fix it, to hire someone, sue someone, fight someone, but Sophia just laughed, shook her head, and said, "Let her be loud. I'll just keep living." And that's exactly what she did. Instead of hiding, she hosted a charity reading event at the cafe, invited the local paper, and publicly shared her story, her struggles, her goals, her truth. The article that came out after painted her as a symbol of resilience, and the hate faded like smoke in the wind. I watched her rise without needing to step on anyone else to do it, and in that moment I knew I would never let her go. Willow, however, started to crumble. The more she tried to insert herself into my life, the more obvious her desperation became. At first, she masked it in poise, but soon she was showing up unannounced, sending gifts to the office, calling my mother to check on me. One night, she waited outside Sophia's apartment and tried to speak to her. Sophia told me the next morning, calmly, with a touch of sadness in her voice, "She's hurting," she said, "but you're not her medicine." That line stuck with me. I wasn't her medicine. I was her mirror, and she hated what she saw in it. I didn't retaliate. I didn't mock. I just lived. And for someone like Willow, that was the cruelest punishment of all, to see me thrive in a world she couldn't control. I finally proposed to Sophia in the most honest way I knew how. No grand gestures, no luxury dinners, just the two of us on a rooftop, watching the city we'd survived together light up beneath us. I gave her a simple ring and said, "Thank you for letting me be me." She said yes with tears in her eyes and strength in her voice. That night, as I held her close, I knew the war was over. But I also knew Willow wouldn't go down quietly. Willow's downfall wasn't loud. It was slow, quiet, and wrapped in the same silk she used to drape over everything she touched. After Sophia and I got engaged, I thought maybe she'd retreat into the distance and lick her wounds like the dignified heiress she once pretended to be. But I underestimated her hunger for control and how deeply she believed that losing me meant losing her power. It started with rumors. Investors whispered that our company was unstable, that personal drama had begun to interfere with professional decisions. Then came a surprise audit, then a false tip-off to regulators. All things that didn't stick, but they stuck long enough to rattle the walls. Khalid and I had to double down on damage control while prepping for our expansion launch. The The final straw came when Willow hosted a charity gala under her family's name and invited me, publicly, via the press. It was framed like an olive branch, a gesture of maturity and forgiveness. Sophia told me not to go. She didn't say it with jealousy or fear, just quiet wisdom. "She's not trying to forgive," she said. "She's trying to rewrite the story." But I went. I needed closure, not for her, but for me. The gala was opulent, crystal chandeliers, golden sculptures, silk-draped walls, champagne fountains. It was a different world, a world I used to believe didn't belong to me. Willow stood at the center of it all like a queen in exile, smiling as if she hadn't tried to tear me down piece by piece. When she saw me walk in, something flickered in her eyes. Hope, desperation, nostalgia, I couldn't tell. She greeted me like a lover returning from war. "You look strong," she said, voice trembling. "Success suits you, but I miss the version of you that needed me." I didn't smile. I didn't thank her. I just said that version of me was never meant to last. We talked, quietly, for 15 minutes while the cameras flashed and the guests whispered. She tried to spin it, said she was scared back then, that all her control was just fear wrapped in love. She told me she still dreamed of us in that little apartment with the noodles and laughter. I told her those dreams were built on lies. "You pretended to be poor to test me," I said. "Then you tried to keep me poor so I wouldn't leave. That's not fear. That's selfishness in disguise." Her mask cracked for a moment, just long enough for me to see the truth. She wasn't trying to win me back anymore. She was trying to make herself believe she hadn't already lost me. I walked out without finishing my drink. That night, I came home to Sophia asleep on the couch, a book open on her chest and her glasses tilted slightly. I kissed her forehead and realized I had everything I ever wanted right there in front of me: a partner who believed in me, a life I built with my own hands, a future no one could take away. A week later, Khalid and I signed a major deal with a multinational firm that put our company on the map. We threw a party on the office rooftop, just friends, colleagues, people who'd been in the trenches with us. Sophia wore a simple blue dress and gave a speech that made half the room tear up. She didn't talk about me. She talked about resilience, about second chances, about how broken things don't always stay broken. Willow wasn't there. I never heard from her again after the gala, except for one letter she mailed weeks later. Handwritten, no return address. It was long, poetic, and haunting. She admitted everything: the manipulation, the sabotage, the twisted fear that if I succeeded, she'd disappear. She wrote, "You were the first person who loved me without asking what I could give. So I tried to make sure you'd always need me, even if it meant breaking you. I never realized love isn't about being needed, it's about being chosen." She ended it with a single line: "I hope she always chooses you." I burned the letter. Not out of hatred, but out of finality. I didn't want those words to echo in my life anymore. Sophia and I got married 6 months later in a small ceremony surrounded by friends and dreams we built together. No media, no drama, just love. She opened her bookstore cafe shortly after, and I helped with the shelves and the paint like an eager handyman. Our mornings became filled with fresh coffee, soft music, and the quiet knowledge that we were no longer running from anything. I never forgot Willow, but I stopped missing her. I stopped wondering what could have been. Sometimes when I pass luxury cars or walk through posh hotel lobbies for business meetings, I think of her world, that golden cage she once tried to trap me in. And then I go home to a one-bedroom apartment filled with books, laughter, and peace. I built my empire, not from money, not from revenge, but from freedom. And the last time I looked back was just to see how far I'd come.